Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today I have a whole lot of happy to share with you. I mean, we could all use a little bit of happy in our life, right? Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 4 different card ideas to share with you that feature a fun, new, happy die cut. Now, this is an amazing little die cut. And there are so many things that you can do with it to create some fun and happy cards. Now, the cards in this video feature the So Much Happy stamp set from Stampin' Up! And the fun new happy dies. So today I'm going to show you 4 different ways that you can use those happy dies to create some bright and cheerful cards. Okay, so this first card that I have to share with you features that happy die cut right across the center of the card. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to use this die to create that fun little die cut. All right, so for the first card, we're going to start out with a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of just some Daffodil Delight cardstock. And then I'm going to take this very large happy die, and I can lay it anywhere on this cardstock. You can, put it towards the top, wherever you want to put it. I'm going to put it just down towards the bottom here. Okay, once you have your die placed where you want it, then you just run it through your embossing machine. Okay, so I've ran this through the embossing machine. Now all I need to do is just take this die off of here. And you can see just how easy all these little pieces punch out. And it just cuts out the word happy right in the center or wherever you want in your cardstock. So it's that easy. Now all you have to do is just decorate this. Okay, so now that you see how easy it is to add a little happy to your card making, let's go ahead and decorate this. So I am using some of the designer paper from the Artistry Blooms Designer Series paper pack just to kind of decorate up my cards. So this piece is 2 3/8 by 4 inches. So I wanted to go completely across my cardstock here. Now you may have to adjust the sizes of your paper just depending on where you place the happy when you go to cut it out. So I would recommend just measuring this when you cut out your little happy decoration here. So my bottom piece is 1 1/2 by 4 inches. So I've just decorated the cardstock with a little bit of designer paper, and now we're going to adhere it to a white card base. Okay, so that's all we have to do. Now we can finish decorating it. So this is just partial die cutting is all it is, except the die does everything for you. Okay, so now I'm just going to use a couple little die cuts from this bundle just to decorate my card. And for the finishing touch, we're just going to add a little sentiment right on the bottom here. All right, that's it. Look how easy that was. And you can use any designer paper that you have on hand to decorate your card. Okay, this second card idea is very similar to the first one I just shared. The only difference is that we're going to decorate this card a little bit differently. And I'm using the die, the happy die, with a piece of designer series paper instead of a piece of cardstock. So let me show you how to create this card. So you're going to start with a piece of white cardstock for the base of your card. And in this case, I cut a piece of designer paper at 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and then I just cut out that happy design right in the center here, kind of towards the bottom, using that die. So I'm just going to adhere this to the front of this card. So you can see the use of designer paper gives it just a little bit different look. But it's the same concept for creating it. So to decorate this card, I'm just going to stamp a couple of strips of Daffodil Delight cardstock using Daffodil Delight ink. And so these cardstock pieces are 3 1/4 by 4. And so I'm just using the same color ink as the cardstock just to add some stars across it. Kind of gives it a nice subtle look. And then we can go ahead and add these pieces just right above where it says happy, kind of above and below. And then I just stamped a couple balloons from the set, so we'll add those here. And then I'm using just a little bit of white baker's twine just to add a little bit of strings for the balloons. So it's a nice little decoration. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just add my little sentiment, my little birthday sentiment here on the bottom. Okay, so that's it. Just another fun way that you can use that happy die cut. Okay, the third way that you can use this happy die is to cut out 3 different strips of cardstock and then cut out the word happy and just layer it across the card. So let me show you how to create this card. So the first thing you need to do is decide what colors you're going to use. So I'm just using colors that coordinate with the designer series paper that I've been using. So this is Melon, Mambo, Rich Raspberry, and Daffodil Delight. So each of these pieces is 1 3/4 by 5 1/2. So I cut them a little bit larger than the card, as you can see, and I'll show you why that's important. So you're basically just going to take the happy die and you're just going to cut out the word happy into each of these 3 pieces. So I recommend just kind of eyeballing it to try to get the happy in the center of this cardstock piece, and then I'll show you an easy way to line up all the words once you have them all cut out. Okay, so here are my 3 pieces that I'm going to be using. And so I'm just going to flip them over, and I'm going to use washi tape, just a little bit of washi tape, to align all of my happy words together. So I'm just going to line up the H's, make sure everything is aligned, and then I'm just going to add my little washi tape right in the center there, just to hold those pieces together. And then I'm going to take my last piece and do the exact same thing. So I'm going to take this purple happy and just line up the H. So you can see that I got pretty close with aligning these. This one's off just a little bit, but that's okay. This just makes it a lot easier to line up your pieces instead of trying to measure and cut. It's just a lot easier to line them up this way. Okay, once we have them all lined up, you can add some liquid glue to the back, and then we're ready to adhere them to our cardstock. So I'm using a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of white cardstock. And I recommend liquid glue just because we can kind of scoot this around to get it where we want. Okay, so that looks about right, but now we got all these extra pieces, so we're just going to snip them off. So again, it's just a much easier way to get the alignment that you're looking for, and it's very easy to just snip these pieces off with your scissors, right? Okay, so now we are ready to put the card together. So I just have a piece of Daffodil Delight cardstock. That's what I'm using for the base of my card. So I'm just going to adhere this right to the card front. So I'm just going to add the stars. Then I'm going to go ahead and tuck a little sentiment right here. And then we'll finish it off with just a couple of rhinestones. And that's it. Just a quick and simple but happy card. And it's a really fun way to use this die. Okay, this last card idea I have to share with you features a couple different ways that you can use that happy die to decorate the front of your card. So I've cut this right into the card front, and then I also added the words right to the background just for kind of a subtle look. So let me show you how to make this one. So before I show you the die cutting that I did on the front of the card, I'm going to show you how to create these letters that we're going to use to decorate the front of the card as well. So you'll need some cardstock, the same color as the cardstock you're using for the base of your card. So I'm using some Rich Raspberry here, and each of these pieces are cut to 2 by 5 1/2 inches. I'm also going to be using some adhesive sheets. So I'm going to show you how to use these adhesive sheets, and I've cut them down so that I can put them right across my cardstock. So these adhesive sheets work so much easier than using liquid glue, especially when you have small die cut shapes like this. You don't want the liquid glue oozing out from underneath it. So this works perfect. So here's what you do. You take off the backing, so each adhesive sheet has a backing. So you take off that backing, and then you go ahead, and it's very sticky, so you go ahead and adhere this sheet, the adhesive sheet, to your cardstock. So you can see it has a protective backing on here as well. So I'm just going to trim off the excess. The adhesive sheets are 6 inches long, so I'm just going to trim off this little excess here. Then I'm going to run this through the embossing machine to die cut the word happy in the front of this cardstock piece. Okay, so I've used this die to cut out the word happy in both of these cardstock pieces. So now what I want to do, since I want to use the letters individually, I can cut, I can use my scissors to cut and cut all these letters out, but I'm just going to use my paper trimmer. So I'm basically just going to line this up on my paper trimmer and cut off these extra ends so that I have the word happy. And then I can just throw this piece away. And then I'm going to turn this around and do the same on this side. And then I have my little happy words. Okay, so now that I have all these little words cut out, the little happy, I can go ahead and adhere them. So I'm just going to peel off that backing. So remember, we put that adhesive sheet on the back of these. So when I cut these out, they're already sticky, so it'll just make it easier for me to adhere them. So I'm just going to adhere them directly above and below the happy that I cut into the card front. So just to give you an idea, I just used this die. I laid it on an angle and just cut across my cardstock, the front of my card, and that's how I created the happy in the front of the card. So you're basically just going to be lining up these letters, line them up according to how you have that happy in the front of the card. So there's the top one, and then we'll go ahead and put the rest of the letters on the bottom. Okay, so that is what it looks like. I know this is dark cardstock, so it might have been hard to see. Okay, so the way I'm going to decorate it is I'm going to use a piece of that designer paper so that it shows up right in the center here across the happy. So it kind of shows up behind it. So in order to do that, I need to open up my card and flip it over. So we're going to be adhering this piece of paper to the inside of the card so that it shows up behind this word happy. So I'm going to use some liquid glue, and we're going to put it across the top here and the bottom. And the piece that I'm using, I cut the exact same size as the card front. So this is a 5.5 by 4.25 inch piece of designer paper because I wanted it to go from end to end. And the nice thing about this designer paper is it's got a fun little pattern on this side so that when you open up the card, this is what you see on the top. And when you close the card, this is what you see on the front. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just add my little balloons to the card. So each balloon has a little string. This is just a little bit of twine that I adhered to the back of the balloon using the dimensionals. So I'm going to just start at the top here. And we'll let our strings hang down and we'll trim them off later. So I'm just going to overlap the balloons just to create a little cluster. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of twine here to tie up my balloon strings so they all kind of stay in the same spot. And then just add like a little glue dot underneath just to kind of hold your strings in place. And then I'm just going to add a little bow here. And then the last thing, I'm just going to add a little sentiment. So I actually need a graduation card, so I'm going to use graduation. And all I'm going to do is just adhere it on an angle. So instead of trying to figure out what the dimensions are, I just cut a larger piece, a longer piece than what I actually need. So I'm just adhering it on an angle, and then I'm just going to open up my card, and I'm just going to trim off that excess. So anytime you're working with angled cards, that's the easiest way to add, different elements and different sentiments to your card. And of course, for the finishing touch, we are just going to add a couple of rhinestones. All right, so there you go. Just another fun way that you guys can use this new little happy die. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 4 different ways that you can use the happy dies to create some bright and cheerful cards. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.